Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, I got winter storm and blizzard warnings for ending this evening for St. Lawrence Island, but staying out all night tonight until about 6 a.m. Tomorrow morning here for the Seward Peninsula and on up in towards Kotzebue Sound and up toward the Noatak Valley. Blizzard warning western Arctic coast out through tomorrow night, and a little longer also probably until possibly late Wednesday night here for the Kobuk Valley, and looking for near whiteout conditions at times with winds 40 to 60 miles an hour, snow and blowing snow, additional 4 to 6 inches, maybe as high as 8 inches on the southern slopes of the western mountains here. And looking at visibilities, again, a quarter mile or less, or in some cases even just whiteout conditions. Otherwise, not as bad here in the winter weather advisory areas around the greater Galena area and on down into the Yukon Delta for tonight, mostly here along the coast. And again, things will be improving from west-southwest to northeast, so it'll be out longer here to the northeast, and then even longer probably into Wednesday here up over the northeast interior. So winter weather advisories for the Yukon Flats, northward across the Brooks Range and the central eastern Arctic coast, winter weather advisories there, snow and blowing snow, gusty winds, and again the blizzard warning back out to the west. Moving on to satellite imagery here, you can see this is the big storm, center of which is moving into the Russian Far East, but a very strong front here coming into the Bering Strait and extending southward, really weakening here as it comes over the southern portion here of the Alaska Peninsula. All the heavy wind and precipitation up here in the northwest, again seeing winds 40 to 60 miles per hour today, some cases a few higher gusts, and the snow and blowing snow over the northwest interior, freezing rain falling this afternoon mixed with snow at Nome, and then mostly just liquid precipitation down across the Yukon, especially the Kuskokwim Delta and Nunivak Island areas, and then tapering off, weak trailing edge into the Alaska Peninsula. Lingering showers early today around the Pribilof Islands, but you can see a pretty good clear slot behind the front as the low pulls up to the northwest, right through there, extending down. So probably getting some, hopefully some sunshine there for the St. Paul, St. George area, on down into the eastern Aleutians, and then you pick up some clouds back toward Adak and Atka to about Shemya, but really not much precipitation with that. Snow showers there just north and northwest of Shemya, and then some of the clearing here with ridging holding again today for Kodiak Island up into Cook Inlets and even the Susitna Valley. And then the higher clouds coming down on the eastern side of the upper level ridge right through here. You can see streaming southward, mostly mid and high level stuff there, kind of banding this little bit of precipitation with this feature here with that light snow exiting the eastern Arctic coast this afternoon, with some of those clouds spilling on down into the Panhandle. Otherwise, pretty good conditions across and dry across much of the southeast coast, except over the southern areas there. Remnants of this system off to the southeast, still keeping some snow showers going into the afternoon hours Monday here over the southern southeast coast, Klawock, Annette, Metlakatla, Heidelberg, and those areas seeing some light snow. Otherwise, that's going to continue to move off to the southeast, as you can see the first batch doing, and then the lingering stuff up here, that'll be moving off as well. And on the chart today, very weak center with that system down there, just 1,019 millibars. Higher pressure up here to the north, about 1,032 millibars, and it's the pressure difference between this high and that pretty intense low pulling up there toward the Russian coast that's producing those strong winds and pulling also warmer air northward here, but still in the form of snow and blowing snow even south of the warm front, not until you get a little farther south, as I mentioned, freezing rain occurring along portions of the Seward Peninsula, possibly in toward maybe Caltag, with just mostly rain out along the southwest coast. Changed over to rain there, St. Lawrence Island at Gamble this afternoon. That's extending down the coast. Again, that band narrowing considerably here as you get down toward the Alaska Peninsula, with just light precipitation there. Dry, you can see ridging here extending east to west through there with a low pulling northward. So even though there's clouds, not really much in the way of any precipitation over the Aleutians, and also over the eastern portion of this warm front, mostly just clouds associated with that. Could be a few light flurries there on the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, and that's about it. Definitely nothing on the north side of the mountains, except the light precipitation associated with this trough that's moving east and southeast. And some of that spills all the way down there, but staying north of the border there toward the Panhandle. And again, light snow there this afternoon is gone. Tonight, that whole system drops right onto the southeast, taking all the moisture with it. High pressure, 1,034 millibars, builds into the Yukon. Once again, be some northerly, gusty type winds here over the northern part of the southeast coast. Nothing won't be blasting through like it's known to in the past. Otherwise, it'll be mostly fair and dry, cooler, chillier there for the Panhandle. Mostly fair here, still some variable clouds over the southeast interior with this front and strong southwest flow behind it, shoving it into the interior. So look for some light snow possibly, definitely coming across the Kuskokwim Valley, maybe reaching the western Alaska range, back to the north along the frontal boundary there to the Arctic coast. And the winds continue to blow, so winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings will continue due to the blowing snow, reduced visibilities, but additional precipitation will start to taper off as that front moves through. But another trough back out here with the main low center, which is weakening, but still holding together pretty well to keep strong winds going St. Lawrence Island up to the northwest coast. Different story over the southern Bering Sea, central Bering Sea here, drying out along the southwest coast. A little bit cooler air, so snow showers in where you saw the rain today, but precipitation just about over. Mixture of conditions, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, but pretty dry there from, say, Port Hayden, Cold Bay on out to about Atka. And then a warm front spreads a chance of moisture up to the north to the central Aleutians late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And then for tomorrow, that front moves out of the area, leaving some scattered snow showers behind over the eastern interior, but the low center pulls up to the northeast here, rotates another good strong trough in. So again, those blizzard winter storm warnings will continue and actually see the conditions deteriorate a little bit again here up over the northwest, down to about the Seward Peninsula, mainly the north side, not so much down toward Nome. And anyway, look for maybe some clearing for St. Lawrence Island. High pressure, definitely some clearing here. Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Delta, and much of the Kuskokwim Valley. This snow shower is lifting northward, so McGrath and Nikolai, snow showers tapering off or ending in the afternoon. Mostly sunny south central Alaska, especially east and south of the Alaska Range, as well as the Panhandle. Next system pulling more wind and rain up into the Aleutians there with a warm front spreading warm front type moisture, fog, drizzle, light rain, light snow, or a mixture of conditions there into the Alaska Peninsula. And then we'll see on Wednesday that system takes a really good jog to the north all the way up toward the Bering Strait, the front edging eastward. Another round of mixed precipitation into the interior, snow in the north, rain in the south, snow and rain showers back out to the west, staying fair, but look for some clouds. Again, this pushing eastward, a little more clouds and precipitation getting in the central interior, staying dry and chilly over the Panhandle. Lows for tonight down that way, mostly in the teens to upper 20s, near 30 on the outer coastline. Eastern interior, 5 below to maybe 5 above there, 10 for the low for Eagle. Much milder back out here with the wind, clouds, and snow over the western part of the state, but still just about everybody down below the freezing point there, even into Bristol Bay, upper 20s to lower 30s, and a shade above freezing for the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow, teens and lower 20s over the east side, and edging up to near or a little above the frost point here over the western, or from the Seward Peninsula and the southwest part of the state. Pushing 50 degrees there for Unalaska, otherwise lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. And then for lows Wednesday morning, roughly maybe a little below 0 for the Yukon Flats, otherwise everyone in that 0 to 15 degree range, and milder again, lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula there, and lower to mid 20s for the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island zone, definitely above freezing, upper 30s, Pribilof, Central Aleutians, Panhandle looking 20s to near 30 for the lows, and highs following up to that will be upper 30s to lower 40s there for the southeast coast, teens to lower 20s east side, and again lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to flying weather graphics. We've got VFR here, Tanana Valley, White Mountains, into Copper River Basin, Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, on down across the southeast coast there to Dixon Entrance. To the west of the mountains here, the Alaska Range and central Tanana Valley back out toward the coast. Marginal VFR with some pretty widespread areas of IFR here, especially down Kuskokwim Valley to Bristol Bay. Up here, the Koyukuk, Kobuk, And into the Noatak Valley, look for some IFR as well as the Yukon Flats. Marginal VFR, eastern and central Arctic coast. Good VFR, a lot of VFR out here over the Bering Sea, and not too bad over most of the Aleutians, but a little more widespread marginal-wise out west. And then for the afternoon tomorrow, bunch of IFR here slips on up into the southern Bering Sea and back down across Atka Island, and then some more just west of Adak. IFR here in the picture from Unalaska Island to the Alaska Peninsula on up into northern Bristol Bay. IFR along and south of the Brooks Range. VFR to the north, and west side here a little lower than the east side on the Arctic coast. Great VFR here, southeast interior in the Panhandle. Wednesday's outlook, IFR now, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, southwest along the Yukon Delta coast, just west of Kuskokwim Bay, Nunivak Island, on down to the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR out to the west, and VFR again here over the areas south and east of the Alaska Range, in down most of the Panhandle. IFR still lingering up here, central interior, Koyukuk Valley, back out toward Kivalina and the Noatak Valley areas is VFR for the most part for the North Slope. And Wednesday afternoon, marginal VFR here, a little bit on the increase for the western Arctic coast, otherwise VFR on to the east. And increasing marginal VFR, as you can see here, into the central interior, slowly advancing eastward. Copper River Basin, VFR Wednesday afternoon, as well as the southeast coast. And most areas of south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, looking pretty good. Maybe some marginal VFR into the northern Susitna Valley. Widespread IFR out here for the northern Bering Sea, Yukon Delta, all the way down in toward northern Bristol Bay. And for passes, Anaktuvik, marginal VFR at times tomorrow. Same forecast for Adigan as well, marginal. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, good conditions, VFR, start to finish. And for rainy, same forecast, VFR the entire day. Windy, VFR. And Isabel also VFR, but some lingering moisture will keep it marginal over toward Mentasta. Lowest conditions in the morning gradually improving into the latter part of the afternoon. Tanita, VFR. And Portage also VFR. Chilkoot and White, VFR. For the freezing levels here, 8,000 feet, kind of a ridge axis right here through the Gulf of Alaska up into the interior. Flow coming over the top of that. We got a pretty good gradient here along the south central Alaska into the Gulf there with 2,000 to 8,000 foot freezing levels. Much cooler here over the Panhandle with the surface air out along the outer coastline and the surface out in the Bering Sea all the way up to the Russian coast. Icing wise, batch of moisture heading eastward and east-northeast will be improving from west to east, obviously in the afternoon. Just some areas of isolated moderate through here, again all shifting eastward. More mixed type icing back out here to the west, a lot more hit and miss than this zone, and a band right here just catching Nikolsky up to the Pribilofs and out over the western Aleutians. Taking a look at the jet stream, here's that big upper high now centered well south of Kodiak Island. And so we've got a flow coming up and through, busting through the ridge axis here, the other center up over the Arctic at a pretty good clip, 120 to 140 knots coming northwest. Arctic jet still north to south here, influencing the Panhandle more than this zone is, 120 to 140 knots out of the north. Southwest flow here with that system rolling northeastward there, bringing the storminess into the northwest part of the state tomorrow, and then more low pressure out over the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, looking like this, south flow, 60, 80 knots here into the Alaska Peninsula, central Aleutians, and then 55 to 70 knots up over the northwest interior areas, and even some real strong winds here into the central interior, about 70 knots at, 9,000 feet, not 3. Northwesterlies 20 to 25 for the Panhandle, and 3,000 feet looking like this. Still pretty good for this elevation with 45 to 60 knot winds up here, strongest in the northwest part of the state. The other zone down here over the Aleutians, 40 to 50 knotters there, lighter with high pressure here over the southwest interior. Turbulence-wise, widespread moderate chop here all the way up to the western Arctic coast, southward to the Kuskokwim Delta, and all of the Aleutians. Otherwise, the Panhandle and southeast interior pretty smooth.
Hello again, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining us again, talking about the Augmented Reality Sandbox, is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. And he's actually talking about a project from AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. A lot of acronyms, but some really fun stuff today, right, Eric?
You bet. We've got a learning tool that is a tool that's fun to use, and it really has a relevance to actually daily lives of anyone who goes outside and sees lumpy topography in Alaska. We've got a lot of mountains and such. You know, when I was younger and go on your first hike in the hills, say, you're given, maybe you're in the Boy Scouts or you get at the kiosk at the trailhead, a topographic map, a flat piece of paper with all these lines on it, bullseyes, long lines that curve back on themselves, say, perhaps things that look like this. A quadrangle or a topographic map. We've got here just to illustrate a couple of examples near Denali. Alaska has so much topography, so many mountains. And what are all these lines that we see? It can be tough to know what this means the first time you look at it. What we've got, all these lines represent lines of where the elevation of the topography goes through a certain level above sea level, say that this line represents where the mountains have gone from below 1,000 feet, mean sea level, up through 1,000 feet and above. That's your 1,000-foot contour. And when the mountain keeps going up, you're up to 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, and so on. And that's how you get this little bullseye around the peak of a mountain.
Kind of makes layered slices, right?
Kind of like layered slices. Nice way to look at that. And when you see the lines are closer together, you're going up more steeply. If the mountain rises more slowly, it takes you longer in horizontal space to go through those different vertical increments. So
that is really hard to visualize.
Right. Imagine you're looking at a 2D piece of paper, two-dimensional piece of paper, but you're trying to understand what the three-dimensional world looks like. Well, enter the augmented reality sandbox. Yes, what is that? It is right here. We have the sandbox with us today, Sandbox 2.0, portable version.
Sweet.
Built up at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And we've got a couple of folks helping out today.
Let's see, Alana Valaji, and she's a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If you want to give us a thumbs up there, Alana, thanks for helping us out today. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator from AKwx, also helping us out today. Thanks, Courtney.
And this tool here has a Microsoft Kinect to sense the level of sand in this sandbox. And then the Kinect feeds its information into a computer that then sends a signal to a projector to draw the appropriate topographic lines on this topography. The fun thing about this, as we can see here, is that the sandbox and its Kinect and its projector, they all work as a team. So here we've got a mountain in the middle of the sandbox. What if we took down the mountain to some degree? Watch as the software responds and redraws the topography.
Kind of a caldera forming there.
There you go, And what's fun about the sandbox too is it knows that gravity flows downhill, and we've got some water that's actually down in the lowest elevations. And what's happening now is we're making it rain a little bit. We'll fill up rain into that elevated lake bed, that caldera, as you said. And so now water is pooled up there. And what if you gouged out an outlet channel?
Glacial dam release.
There you go. The water flows out. What we're seeing here is a tool that allows people to touch and connect, Microsoft Connect, RRR, to connect two-dimensional topographic maps like what we have here, these flat things on a piece of paper, to the real three-dimensional world. I think this Sandbox's real particular application as a learning tool to young people is, what does a two-dimensional map mean when it's trying to represent the three-dimensional world? This sandbox is kind of both at once. It's actually three-dimensional, lumpy topography there, the sand, but it's got these lines drawn on the three-dimensional sand that would be on a two-dimensional piece of paper.
Wow, that is a huge leap from the learning that we experienced when we were younger to how children and even adults are visualizing in these new forms of technology. Allows that to kind of reshape their thinking and visualize this in a very useful and absolutely hands-on way. It's amazing.
It's a hands-on tool, and
it's hard for me to sit here and not go play with that.
Well, that's what happened at GINA, up at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, when the first model was being made, the prototype with plywood and such. We had professional adult professor types had heard about this, and they came by because they wanted to see how it worked.
Okay.
And everyone becomes that idealistic, wonder-filled youngster.
Sure.
And you just can't help but play with that, and to see how it reacts in time, and
Right.
it's a dynamic learning tool, and it
Dynamic,
responds.
That's exactly the word.
And
Yeah.
you wonder what applicabilities beyond a teaching
Right.
tool for
Where does it
topography
go?
can it have? You can see how in Alaska we have inundation mapping is an issue. If you had water slosh inland, say in a coastal flooding event
Right.
on the western coast of Alaska or the Arctic coast, you could see this. The concept is illustrated here as an introductory learning method. I think this is a potentially good outreach tool for all of us in Alaska.
Okay, so not only just a topographical sense, a mapping sense, maybe something that leads into understanding of how geographic information systems work with GIS, but also geology, if we wanted to get into kind of the formations and the bigger land masses and the representation of the 2D map. We could go into hydrology, which is very important in Alaska, of course. And even just understanding the weather sense. Mounding up a big pile of sand could be that Arctic high pressure system sitting on top of Fairbanks, and the voids would be low pressure systems. This can go a lot of different directions.
Yes, exactly. It's not just landforms, but pressure has contours of high pressure and low pressure. And I wish I had had this kind of a learning tool when I was taking
kidding.
Meteorology 101 back 25 years ago.
wow.
Would have been helpful, I think.
Probably would have gotten a better grade, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming by, Eric, and Alana and Courtney, thank you so much for your help there in the sandbox. We are going to play in the sandbox a little bit more coming up tomorrow on our next edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We hope you join us for that. In the meantime, make sure you go to alaska.edu/EPSCOR. That's alaska.edu EPSCOR to learn more information about what we're doing with this augmented reality sandbox around Alaska. We'll see you next time on Alaska Weather Facts.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing the same trend with the southerly winds out over the Bering Sea continuing to erode the ice back to the north and east. As you can see, thinning out there in Nunivak Island area, especially the north side of the Yukon Delta coast, southern Norton Sound, opening up to open water here actually west of Kotzebue Sound. Still a fair amount of ice, so central northern Cook Inlet. And moving on to the marine forecast, coastal waters over the Panhandle. Inside waters, not too bad, north 10 to 15, maybe some higher gusts over the Lynn Canal, but nothing serious at all. Light northwesterlies there over Clarence Strait, northwest 15 out along the outer coastline, 15 to 20 knots from the west-northwest on the north coast. And then the outlook for Wednesday, westerlies at 15 on the north coast, northwest 15 to 20 with seas 6 feet on the south coast, and northerlies 15 to 20 for Stevens Passage to the Lynn Canal, northwest 15, 3-foot seas for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound north at 15 with seas around 3 feet, west 15, 7-foot seas here for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And then the west side here, northwest 25 becomes 30 knots out of the west for the Barren Islands into Kachemak Bay, falling back to north at 15 for southern Cook Inlet. Wednesday's outlook, we've got kind of a light variable wind pattern here for Cook Inlet to basically east, but only 10 knots, 2-foot seas in the ice-free water areas south of the Foreland, southeast 20 for Kachemak Bay, southwest 25, so that's where the strongest winds will be found in these zones there across the Barren Islands with 6-foot seas. Otherwise, southwest 15 for the North Gulf Coast, light southwest breeze for Prince William Sound. And for Kodiak Island, westerlies 15 to 20 tomorrow, 4 to 6-foot seas. Northwest 15, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Swing around to the southeast to 20, Castle Cape to Cape Sarachef. North side of the peninsula, southeast 25, 10-foot seas. Light easterlies for Bristol Bay. And for Wednesday, those become south at 20 with 6-foot seas. Southerlies 25 to 30 knots blowing across the peninsula there with 9 to 11-foot seas, and small craft advisories up to Sitkinak out of the southwest. And actually, southwest winds at 25 extend from Castle Cape all the way across Kodiak Island. And for the western Aleutians, east winds there around Amchitka Island turn northeast, but both at 35 knots, 14 to 18-foot seas there, so minimum gales in that area, southerlies 30 to 35 knots, actually turn east 30, a little lighter under gale force on the Bering Sea side of the central Aleutians, south to southeast 30 knots for the Fox Islands with seas 13 to 16 feet. And then for Wednesday, we've got Southerlies, Unalaska Island, 25 to 30 knots, turning southwest 30 to 35 knots here back over toward Nikolsky. And that pattern holds right across Adak and Atka for minimum gales, mainly on the Bering Sea side of things in these zones. And then westerlies there west of Adak, west winds 30 knots all the way out to Shemya. And then for the St. Lawrence Island zone tomorrow, strong southwesterlies, 45 knots, seas 26 feet. Southerlies here, strongest north of Nunivak Island, 30 knots, 11-foot seas, 20 knots to the south, southeast 25 for the Pribilofs, and southwest gales for St. Matthew Island, those seas up to 28 feet. And for the Wednesday forecast, south winds coming down, small craft advisories now for St. Lawrence Island, 10-foot seas, 20 to 25 here for the southwest coast. Out of the south, seas 8 to 9 feet, south 20 knots, and those seas coming down to 10 feet for St. Matthew Island. And good stiff southerly breeze at 30 knots for the Pribilofs with 14-foot seas. And up to, there we go, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west-southwest at 30 tomorrow with brisk wind advisories extending all the way across the central coast. And we've got storm warnings out from mainly Point Lay all the way down to near the Bering Strait there. 50-knot winds southwest, mostly southerly, Cape Thompson up the west side here. So a really big wind day coming up for the western Arctic coast of the Bering Strait tomorrow. And then for the Wednesday outlook, coming down quite a bit here, Cape Thompson to Wales, just 15 knots out of the south. And then westerlies at 20 to 25 here on the west side. So brisk wind advisories from about the, say, the Point Lay zone eastward here, and those actually pick up, increase toward demarcation point to 30 knots. Looking at tonight again, this front moves through. See a little bit of an improvement in conditions here once that front pushes eastward, but a lot of action here to the west will keep those blizzard winter storm warnings going here, Seward Peninsula into the interior, and then winter weather advisories just to the south. We'll see that system progresses eastward with snow and blowing snow tomorrow up through here. Strong winds again, gusting 60 miles an hour. Next system rolls up Bering Strait the next day with rain and snow in the west, mostly dry in the
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.